For some reason, the Bridgeport airport seemed to be a dead zone for paparazzi. When the parade of veteran celebrities began to arrive, they were met with nothing. No gauntlet of flashing cameras, no shouting photographers. They all assumed their time in the spotlight had faded so completely that even the freelancers couldn't be bothered. Then they noticed that the new generation pop idols on their same flights weren't getting swarmed either, just greeted by normal, orderly fans. It was a relief. Cade, as one of those rising stars, had managed to snag a spot at the university's charity concert. His last project, director Ian Shaw's Storm and Cloud, had been a flop, but a few high-profile talk show appearances and his stunning good looks, backed by a powerful agency, had kept his star from falling. This kind of charity gig, where you had to cover your own travel expenses, was surprisingly sought after. It offered a chance to share the stage with legends, project a positive image, and perform for a college audience. His agent had to pull some serious strings to get him the invitation. Cade noticed the lack of paparazzi immediately. It was a strange feeling. On the one hand, their constant presence was an infuriating nuisance. On the other, its total absence felt unnatural. Most of the performers were on a tight schedule. They'd flown in a day early to rest, get their glam done, and coordinate with their PR teams. The moment the concert ended, they'd be whisked away on red-eye flights to their next gig. It was the life. Cade, at least, had his own dedicated photographer on payroll to capture his every move. It didn't take long for the industry whisper network to figure out why the airport was so quiet. Apparently, Mabai, who was a student here, had been ambushed by photographers a few days ago while meeting family. They'd snapped a few pictures and spun them into a nasty, baseless rumor online. In response, someone had brought the hammer down. The entire airport had been cleaned up. Hearing the story, Cade felt a chill. Damn, he'd been tempted to hire a local crew himself. Mabai, you're on another level. Getting a single photo twisted into a scandal was standard operating procedure for them. It was practically a rite of passage. But for Mabai, it resulted in the entire airport security protocol being overhauled to crack down on paparazzi. He heard the photographer responsible was already facing legal trouble. While no one was shedding a tear for him, the reaction seemed wildly disproportionate. No wonder Mabai had blown up but showed zero interest in officially entering the entertainment industry. What kind of monumental backing did he have? Every agent was now issuing stern warnings to their clients. Keep your head down in Bridgeport. This was a charity event. Any celebrity with a bad temper or diva-like tendencies was to lock it down and fake being a saint for the next 48 hours. And most importantly, they were told to keep their eyes open and not throw their weight around with the up-and-comers. The agents didn't name names, but everyone understood. The guy who could get a photographer arrested and the airport's media policy rewritten over a single picture was not someone you messed with. Rumor had it the entire concert was happening because of an offhand comment he'd made. The stories grew more and more outlandish, but the message was clear: be on your best behavior. Those who arrived early for the afternoon rehearsal were models of professionalism. No one was pulling any of the usual celebrity stunts, like sending an assistant with a placard to stand in for them. Instead, they were all subtly trying to get a look at the man of the hour, the Northwood State student known as Mabai. His performance wasn't scheduled for the beginning of the show. As everyone knew, the opening slot was tricky. The venue was still settling. People were finding their seats, and the energy wasn't quite there yet. You needed a familiar face, a high-energy act to kick things off, a rock band. Maybe a newcomer could easily fall flat. The golden window was 30 to 60 minutes in, after the warm-up acts had gotten the crowd buzzing and people were hyped for something new. That was when the audience was most receptive. The second half was tougher. People were getting tired, their patience wearing thin, and some would inevitably leave early. That's why you saved your biggest star for the finale, the headliner who could pull the crowd's energy to its absolute peak. If a rookie was a true phenomenon, you might slot them 1 or 2 acts before the headliner to ride that peak of anticipation. The final act of this concert was a true national treasure, a folk rock legend whose songs were staples of every karaoke bar and road trip playlist in the country. The perfect choice for a massive, unifying sing-along. If Leo had his way, he'd have gone on early to get it over with so he could just enjoy the rest of the show. As a performer, he had a front row seat, basically a super VIP ticket. But Alex had other plans. He wasn't going to let a little bit of organizational power go to waste. The scheduling of a concert was a battlefield where every artist team fought for the best spot. Alex didn't care about any of that. His only concern was logistics and giving Leo the perfect platform. After all, this whole thing had started with a breakfast burrito. Alex might not have grasped the finer points of political empathy yet, but he acted on instinct. Normally, the most favorable spot for a newcomer was in that early to mid-show sweet spot. But Alex had high hopes for this concert, and even higher hopes for his roommate. He'd seen Leo turn a humble food stand into a city-wide event. That was already a miracle. Alex believed a bigger one was coming. So he'd placed Leo in the penultimate slot, right before the legendary headliner. It was, for all intents and purposes, the true climax of the show. The final singer was the closing credits. This wasn't just blind faith. Alex knew that while Leo might not be the most technically flawless singer, his live performances were incredibly moving, filled with an emotional power that videos just couldn't capture. He was convinced this would be the concert's real peak. A university concert needed a university student to be its heart. Leo, for his part, was happy to go along with it. He didn't understand the strategy, but he trusted Alex completely. He just did what the smart people told him to do. For the afternoon rehearsal, he brought Stella along. With so many celebrities around, security was tight, and only students with official duties were allowed inside the venue. The university's arena, shared with the Honors College, was massive, with a capacity of over 20,000. The event was a joint effort. Alex was the lead on the university side, while Levi handled the city's promotional and cultural affairs coordination. It was a lesson in the power of networking. The connections Alex made at random events were now paying off. He couldn't have pulled this off alone. He'd brought Levi in, and Levi's team had arranged for the top-tier sound and lighting equipment the university could never afford. A successful event would be a major win for Levi's career, and the collaboration with the university was great publicity. Leo brought Stella because, even though she wasn't a fangirl, it was a chance to hang out and see some famous people in their natural, offstage habitat. It was, if nothing else, interesting. Rehearsal was fascinating. Leo saw a host of celebrities he recognized from TV and movies, along with a few viral stars he vaguely knew from TikTok. Being in their senior year, he and his friends were too busy to follow pop culture closely, and besides, the fan bases for today's idols seemed to be getting younger and younger, mostly high schoolers. He had no idea what these stars were like in private, but here, every single one of them was impeccably polite. Some of the older veterans were clearly just there for the music, looking lost and recognizing no one. One of them was a folk legend, an ancient god of the genre, whose albums his Uncle Clay used to play on repeat. Leo felt like he'd been raised on those songs. His uncle was a university professor now, but he was still a devoted fan. Leo had brought a small notebook and respectfully asked for an autograph to mail to him later. The legend himself was completely unassuming, dressed in comfortable sweats as if he'd just rolled out of bed, without a hint of celebrity ego. He chatted with Leo for a bit, completely relaxed. He was the final act on the bill, but he carried no airs, happy to just hang out. Since he wasn't one to follow current trends, he didn't recognize Leo and just assumed he was a student on a date with his girlfriend. He even bummed some of their snacks, a bag of crispy, fried chili peppers. The old-timer had no shame. Unlike Cade, who had eyed the snacks earlier but was too timid to ask, blushing and walking away, this guy just sat down, joined the conversation, and started munching. "Hey, these are good," the legend said, his mouth full, like spicy peanuts. "Crispy. Where'd you get 'em? Send me the link." When he found out Leo was the performer scheduled right before him, he blinked in surprise, but quickly shrugged it off. There were so many new faces these days. It was normal not to know them all. He even offered Leo some tips for the stage. If you get nervous and your leg starts shaking, just pretend you're tapping out the beat with your foot, he advised. And if you forget the lyrics, just hold the mic out to the crowd and you'll sing it with me. They ended up exchanging contact info, mainly because the old musician was dead set on getting more of those fried chili peppers. It was proof of Leo's theory. Food was the ultimate social lubricant. Meanwhile, Cade watched from a distance as Mabai chatted easily with a music icon. He saw the legend popping chili pepper after chili pepper in his mouth, and his eyes practically turned green with envy. He whined to his agent, "I want some fried chili peppers." His agent looked at him like he was insane. "Are you crazy?" Then he glanced over and saw the legend snacking away. "You want to be like him?" The man could lose his voice and still sell out a stadium, because the audience would sing every single word for him. "Can you do that? If you can, then fine. Go eat all the peppers you want." Cade fell silent. After his sound check, Leo made a quick exit. The campus food festival was tonight, and he had to help Sean with a live stream. Plus, their own private kitchen had a booth to manage. The main restaurant was open tonight, but would be closed tomorrow, so the staff could come watch him perform, which meant they were a little short-handed. Alex was stuck overseeing the concert preparations and couldn't help out. So, the two resident slackers, Piggy and Jordan, were put on booth duty. Before he left, Leo told the folk singer and a few others that they should check out the food festival, mentioning that the fried chili crisps had a booth with free samples. Then he bolted, as more and more people started trickling into the rehearsal space, hoping to catch a glimpse of the stars or the mysterious Mabai. Leo swung by the restaurant to change. Tonight was his first ever live stream, an unannounced test run, so he had no idea what to expect. Stella had picked out his outfit, a simple, clean-looking white tracksuit that screamed college student. No logos, just a fresh, effortless vibe. As she straightened his collar, he took the opportunity to steal a few more kisses, then nipped her gently on the neck. He couldn't help it. The nervous energy was making his adrenaline spike, and it had to go somewhere. Sean was waiting for him downstairs. The food festival was being held on the student strip next to the Honors College campus, where there was more open space. The area had been transformed into a bustling night market, a vibrant, orderly maze of stalls that, from a drone's perspective, would look like a perfectly planned pop-up city. It was packed with students and visitors. Besides every kind of food imaginable, dry, soupy, spicy, sweet, fruits, nuts, there were also booths selling little crafts, toys, and university souvenirs like cute little keychains with the school seal. Even if you weren't hungry, it was impossible to walk through the fragrant air and not be tempted. Tonight was Sean's first time directing a live broadcast. He was essentially a human camera rig with a ring light, navigating the festival grounds. While each stall had its own lighting, the uneven glow cast unflattering shadows. This was also Leo's first time appearing live on camera. All his previous content had been in pre-recorded videos. Everyone knows there's a world of difference between a polished video and a live feed. Someone can look like a divine being in a carefully edited clip, only to crash back to earth during a live stream, revealing awkward speech patterns and a less-than-perfect appearance. Videos can be meticulously retouched, but live broadcasts are far less forgiving. An indoor stream from a fixed position is one thing. You can control the beauty filters, angles, and background. But an outdoor, mobile stream with other people around is treacherous. Crank the beauty filter too high, and the people walking by might warp, or the legs of a chair could bend. And eating on a heavily filtered stream? A recipe for disaster, with chopsticks twisting into surreal shapes. Sean planned to stream for just half an hour, an unannounced warm-up. He was a little nervous himself. He'd spent hours calibrating the settings, doing test shoots with Jordan and Piggy. The goal wasn't to make them look like porcelain dolls with razor-sharp chins and saucer eyes, but he didn't want them looking like blotchy, shadowy messes either. For Leo's regular videos, he never used beauty filters. The distortion just wasn't worth it. The raw footage from the camera always felt more authentic and immersive. The stream started from inside the restaurant. When it went live, only a few dozen viewers trickled in, confused. Leo was just as clueless. This really was different from making a video. Normally, he and Sean joked around easily, but with the camera live, Leo just smiled. He smiled at Sean's camera, and behind it, he could see Stella giving him a thumbs up, which made him smile again. For the people who had stumbled into the stream, it was electric. The chat exploded. Some spam Mabai, over and over. Others spammed roommate. A live feed felt so much more real than a video. At least this proves the roommate isn't some AI creation, someone typed. The viewership climbed rapidly from tens to hundreds, then past 1,000, then 2. Today, the sky was clear, with a light southerly breeze. The system's daily forecast read, auspicious for, sifting sand for gold, making offerings, marriage, inspections, leisure, study, progress, video chats. Inauspicious for, all endeavors are favored. Leo woke up feeling sharp, his mind clear and refreshed as if it were brand new. Ever since he'd started running, he rarely got sick. Before, he'd wake up every few weeks with a stuffy nose for no reason, though his sleep schedule back then had been a chaotic mess. Waking with the sun and resting with the moon was the secret to longevity, but it was so simple and obvious that most people dismissed it. Yesterday had been hectic, and he'd gone to bed late, but he had slept soundly. He didn't even have a chance to hear anyone snoring. He was always the first one out. He'd slept for less than 8 hours, but the quality was a solid 85 out of 100. After waking, Leo went through his routine. Wash up, drink honey water, take care of business. Then, he decided he still needed to run. It had become an addiction, and with his culinary skills improving, his appetite had grown too. He worried he'd end up chubby like Moose if he didn't stay active. His morning run always started with checking in on Professor Reed. Just seeing the long-lived professor gave him a sense of security, as if her longevity might be contagious. She always greeted him with a wide smile, her perfect dentures gleaming, radiating a powerful life force. She was the type of person you could imagine sitting bolt upright in her coffin to yell, "You slacker," one last time. This morning, Alex and Sean weren't there. It was just Leo. Professor Reed was full of energy. For a teacher, she was in remarkable shape. Most academics suffered from occupational hazards, strained vocal cords, bad backs, and for the older generation who used chalk, damaged lungs. Leo usually avoided talking about academics with her, and she didn't press the issue, but she was a wealth of knowledge on health and wellness, and they often chatted about it. Lately, she'd been having some throat discomfort. Scans of her throat and her recent lung checkup showed nothing. The culprit, it turned out, was acid reflux. You should probably switch from white rice porridge to millet porridge for breakfast, Leo suggested, drawing from his godfather's notes. And avoid porridge or any thin soups at night. He recalled a case study from the notes. A person who coughed after every meal or whenever they lay down. They thought it was a lung or throat problem, but tests came back clean. The issue was the valve at the top of the stomach letting acid escape. Professor Reed listened, stunned. It made perfect sense. As she'd gotten older, she gravitated toward easily digestible foods like porridge, thinking it was healthier. She'd never imagined that her supposed health food was the source of her discomfort. The topic of wellness opened up a long conversation. Leo finished his warm-up, but the professor was still eager to talk. They decided to pick it up tomorrow. After all, he showed up every day like clockwork. Warm-up complete, Leo went to fetch Moose. On the way, he passed the breakfast burrito stand. The owner, looking sleepy, lit up when he saw Leo and shoved 4 sausages into his hand. Pure starch, no mystery meat. For your dog. Last night, at the food festival, the man had cleared over $2,000 in profit from his burrito stand alone. His arms ached from a full night of work, but the thought of it made him giddy. $2,000 a day, $60,000 a month. That's millions a year. It was a ridiculous fantasy, of course. Festival numbers weren't daily numbers, but the feeling was incredible. So many people had told him his burritos were the best, the most authentic, that even his green onions tasted better than anyone else's. And so, before his run even began, Moose was blessed with the joy of 4 sausages. It was a perfect morning, clear, warm, and still. The campus was already dotted with students, some running, others studying. Leo didn't spot any obvious fans lying in wait. Only the most dedicated stand would show up at dawn. He and Moose ran a little longer than usual today. Leo activated a time dilation buff, pushing himself until he felt completely cleansed and refreshed. Moose, sluggish from his pre-run feast, managed a couple of laps before plopping down on the grass to wait, wagging his tail as encouragement. After the run, Leo was happily leading Moose back when he ran into Paige, who was there to pick up some clothes. "Seeing you this early is a rare sight," he teased. "I have a morning class," Paige shot back. Whenever they were alone, their default mode was trading jabs. Then her expression shifted to one of smug triumph. "By the way, I got VIP tickets from a scalper. Front row. So you better be good tonight, or I'm throwing potato chips at you." "How much did you pay?" Leo asked, curious. Students could reserve free tickets with their IDs, but those were never in the best sections. $2,300, she declared proudly. "It was originally $2,800, but since all 4 of us in my dorm bought them, he gave us a discount." Leo couldn't help but slap his forehead. One sucker was bad enough. Her dorm had a whole quartet. "I have tickets, Paige. I gave some to your mom. You didn't think to ask me first." Paige froze. The scalper won't give a refund. My mom is coming too." Leo just sighed and ruffled Moose's thick fur. It was a miracle the dog's IQ hadn't dropped, living with an owner like this. He watched as Paige practically dove headfirst into her closet to find an outfit, her torso disappearing completely, leaving only her legs and but sticking out. "Nope, not looking." Leo turned and left. He picked up breakfast and brought it back to the dorm. Alex was sleeping in, his legs sore from yesterday's running around. He dramatically rolled out of bed with a theatrical groan. A day of physical exhaustion in exchange for emotional fulfillment had now earned him the reward of aching muscles. Jordan had overeaten last night and complained of indigestion, yet paradoxically, he'd woken up starving. He was already out of bed by the time Leo arrived with food. Sean was, as always, unstoppable. He hadn't slept well, still buzzing from the success of last night's livestream. But his daily video couldn't be late. Consistency was key. He'd been up since dawn editing. Leo laid out the food for his roommates. Jordan, since starting at the restaurant, had actually become a bit more helpful. He now helped set the table and clear the trash without being asked. Alex brewed a pot of tea for everyone. For once, Sean didn't have to lift a finger. Everything was already done. Leo had brought back their diner's famous breakfast bowls and donuts, along with a special order of black soy milk for Alex, who'd heard it was good for maintaining a thick head of hair and was taking preventative measures. After breakfast, Leo headed to the library for his usual study session. On the way, he texted his small group chat with Professor Hoffman and Penelope to let them know he was performing. Professor Hoffman replied almost immediately, "I know. They got me on security duty for the past 2 days. Don't worry, Penelope and I will be there tonight. I saw the set list. You're on right before the headliner. Break a leg." When a celebrity appeared, the crowd roared. When a dignitary appeared, the crowd fell silent. There are no true secrets in certain circles. From their seats beside the stage, the waiting performers watched as the governor, who had just finished his opening remarks, walked over and placed a friendly hand on the young man's shoulder. They all understood. What looked like a coincidence was anything, but some of them had been grumbling internally. Putting Ma Bai, a college senior who'd gotten famous by accident from a minor role in a single show, in the penultimate slot? Was that reasonable? Was it insane? They had all come at their own expense for a good cause. But the industry hierarchy was a delicate, fiercely guarded thing. But the concert organizer was also just a kid, supposedly Ma Bai's roommate. The rumor was that the whole event was his idea, and he'd insisted on Ma Bai being the pre-headliner act. But no one dared to look down on the young organizer. A few quiet inquiries revealed he was the real deal, the son of a high-ranking official. Alex would have corrected them. His father was only a deputy director, not quite at the top yet. But the point stood. These stars might be greeted by screaming fans, but they knew that fame was a carefully constructed illusion. In the face of real power, it bent the knee. They were used to seeing studios push untalented children of wealthy capitalists. This was just the political version. Different worlds, same story. They all felt a twinge of envy. That photographer had been an idiot. They were all used to being targets of false rumors. They'd learned to live with it, even to manipulate it to their advantage. But for this kid, the response was zero tolerance. The system itself had moved to protect him. The governor finished his speech, and the show began. The first act was a high-energy pop-rock band that immediately set the stadium on fire. The thundering music and roaring cheers were a bit much for the dignitaries in the front row, but the students in the back loved it. This was a concert, not a board meeting. Hormones were firing, the energy was electric, and the screams were deafening. The bass was so powerful it didn't just vibrate in your chest. It felt like it was beating your heart for you. Leo had taken a seat next to Judge Cole. As the band finished their set to thunderous applause, Leo turned to the old man, who was clapping along, looking fine. "Judge, your heart must be in great shape," Leo said, leaning in. "That bass was so loud it almost knocked me over." Professor Reed, another academic titan in the front row, was watching with keen interest, a picture of robust health. "It is a bit loud," the judge chuckled, "but it's fine. Being around all these young people makes me feel young again. When we were sent to the countryside, our rallies were just as noisy, with gongs and drums." His eyes glazed over with nostalgia. They didn't have fancy stages or sound systems back then, just loud voices and passionate hearts. Each generation was different. The man he was then could never have imagined a future like this, with its dazzling kaleidoscopic lights and 3D effects. Behind them, in a slightly less prestigious row, Richard Vance watched Leo chatting comfortably with the old guard in the front row, his feelings a complicated tangle. His sources had told him Governor Chandler had undergone surgery just 2 days ago. Normally, he wouldn't have attended an event like this, or would have sent a lieutenant governor at most. Yet here he was. Richard Vance was a brilliant man. You don't build an empire without being exceptionally smart. It took him only a second to understand why. The sheer weight of the guests in the front row demanded it. The governor would have shown up even if his surgery had been this morning, as long as he could stand. It wasn't about ability, it was about attitude. So, the man the governor had greeted as Director Wright, the one Leo casually called Adam, the entire front row was filled with titans. And his future son-in-law was navigating them all with ease, calling one grandpa, another bro, another professor. They were all his elders. Even the governor of the state had made a point to come over and say hello. His own wife, Victoria, was deep in conversation with Leo's godmother, Grace Shun. Victoria, a socialite from a family that had seen better days, had the grace of her upbringing, but none of the snobbery. Richard, meanwhile, tried to make conversation with Leo's godfather, Dr. Shun, next to the impeccably tailored and charismatic Richard Vance, Dr. Shun looked like a slightly rumpled, quiet old man who wasn't great at small talk. But Richard knew better than to underestimate him. The wealthy feared death more than anyone, and they all knew who the top doctors were. This unassuming little man had a waiting list that included governors and senators. His fees were astronomical. His simple clothes were a sign of indifference, not lack. A man with his skills would be wealthy forever, a stability that business moguls like Richard could only dream of. Leo glanced at his phone. The family group chat was already blowing up with screenshots from the official livestream. Governor Chandler with his hand on Leo's shoulder. Governor Chandler leaning in to speak with him. His aunt, who worked for a state-owned enterprise, was spamming exploding head emojis. His uncle Clay was numb. After his nephew had returned from his second visit to his girlfriend's family with a Rolls-Royce and $1 million check, nothing could surprise him anymore. Or so he thought. Seeing this, who could stay calm? He'd always felt the responsibility of bringing glory to the Foster name rested on his shoulders. Now, he felt like he'd been wasting his effort. In a live stream, his nephew stood among giants, looking humble but completely at ease, holding his own as the state's most powerful man chatted with him. Clay, at 21, could never have managed that. A single compliment from his own advisor would send him floating for days. And damn it, the kid was getting more handsome by the day. Even his notoriously quiet uncle-in-law, a high-level official who only became talkative after a few drinks, was typing furiously in the chat, praising Leo's poise and bright future. He even posted a ridiculously formal poem. A fledgling phoenix sings from the Jade Hall, a new bud of orchid already fragrant. When his name is one day carved on the highest tower, he will smile upon the spring wind that fills the capital. It was so awkward. Leo replied with a simple, smiling emoji. The program was perfectly paced, alternating between high-energy acts and soulful ballads, with dance numbers sprinkled in. Alex, along with the university president and Levi, took the stage to talk about the concert's mission. All proceeds would be donated to the Northwood Student Aid Foundation to fund scholarships for underprivileged students. Alex had learned a key principle: share the responsibility and share the credit. You could tell who the currently popular stars were by the volume of the screams. When one of the top-tier idols took the stage, the roar was so loud it felt like it could tear the roof off the stadium. It was a visceral, foot-stomping, primal scream. That sound wasn't just for the star. It was for the VIPs in the front row, the executives, the investors, the officials. They might not know the music, but they understood the math. The volume of the screams was a direct measure of an artist's market value. After the midway point, it was time for Leo to head backstage. He excused himself to Adam Wright, who gave him an encouraging nod. Don't be nervous. Just get up there and sing. Sean had the live stream equipment ready, having learned from yesterday's shaky broadcast. Stella and Jessica also slipped out of their seats to join him. Backstage was a chaotic but thrilling world. The makeup room was a temporary setup, but the same glam squad from his film shoot was there for him. The moment Sean started the backstage stream, viewers flooded in. People are endlessly fascinated by the world behind the curtain. Watching the process of transformation is a kind of therapy. Leo was too nervous about his performance to be nervous about the camera. Am I okay? He asked, feeling the layers of foundation and powder on his skin. The flamboyant makeup artist, who had earlier marveled at the length of his eyelashes, was now putting the finishing touches on. Perfect, Stella said with a nod. Jessica nodded along with her. It was true. He looked incredible. He was handsome on a normal day, but this was different. Polished and styled, he practically glittered. There was an untouchable, almost regal quality to him that made you want to get closer. The chat went wild. Whatever they're feeding the students at Northwood State, I want some. He's a senior. You're too late. Mabai, please stay for grad school. As his time slot approached, Leo closed his eyes and remembered the folk legend's advice. Shake your leg, call it keeping time. Forget the words, point the mic at the crowd. A stagehand came to give him his 5-minute warning. Stella and Jessica headed back to their seats. Alex appeared, rubbing the shoulder the governor had touched for good luck. You got this, Leo. Down in the audience, Jordan was holding a massive bouquet of flowers. The host's voice boomed through the stadium. And now, please welcome our next performer, a Northwood State senior, Leo Foster, singing his song, The Fierce Young Sun. Leo's legs felt a little weak, but he didn't feel the urge to run to the bathroom, a small victory for his nervous system, which he credited to his daily runs. Don't be nervous, he told himself. It's just singing. You've sung this song 1,000 times. He walked slowly toward the stage, letting his heart rate settle. If he blanked, he could always just shout capybara and start over. The stage lights were even brighter than they had been at rehearsal, washing out the front rows into a blur of indistinct shapes. The crowd in the back was a distant galaxy of waving lights. The air crackled with shouts. Mabai, Mabai. From one section, senior, senior. from another, and roommate from a third. The home field advantage was real. Sean found his spot among the professional camera operators, his phone broadcasting live. Cade, exhausted but exhilarated from his own high-octane performance, watched from the wings. He'd always considered his looks to be his greatest weapon, but seeing Mabai on stage now, he realized he'd been humbled. The guy was just effortlessly, incandescently cool. He was fully clothed, nothing revealing, yet he commanded the stage with a magnetism that was breathtaking. By now, the audience was starting to feel the fatigue of a long night. They were waiting for the grand finale. The fans of other artists were already starting to edit photos on their phones, getting their social media posts ready. Then the opening chords of the song began. A face appeared on the big screens, unfamiliar to many, but impossibly handsome, with a kind of ethereal, detached grace. People who had been hunched over their phones looked up, their half-edited photos forgotten. But I was born stubborn. I'm a fierce young son. No backup dancers, no frills. Just a voice, clear and powerful, that soared through the arena. The people editing photos looked up from their screens, stunned. On the left screen was a full-body shot. On the right, a tight close-up. Gonna fly against the wind, till the battle's won. If the darkness tries to stop me, I'll become the breaking dawn, shining on the stage where I belong. Even the jaded industry veterans, the ones who had been secretly rolling their eyes at his prime slot, were now sitting bolt upright. A voice like that, they thought, and you're wasting it on acting? You fool. Once he started singing, Leo lost himself in the music. He loved this song. It was about courage and perseverance. He thought about his own life. He'd never been brave, never been persistent. He'd spent years drifting. Sometimes he still wondered if the system was real or just a fantasy he'd created to force himself to change. But the progress was real. With every task completed, he felt a growing sense of accomplishment. I can do this. I'm not so bad after all. Shatter the walls of reality. Pack my bags and roam. Every single footstep brings me home. So I'll never walk in fear or feel alone. Just the warm moon watching from my window. The dream I've always known. The soaring melody was like a force of nature. Everyone, from the students to the governor, raised their arms and swayed. For a moment, they were all connected, sharing in the boy's raw emotion. Eyes welled with tears that wouldn't fall. Sean's live stream shattered the 100,000 viewer mark, the counter just sticking at 100K plus as countless more poured in. Judge Cole was transported back to his own youth, a young man in worn-out shoes, waving his comrades forward into an uncertain future. Professor Hoffman was back on the day he first met Penelope, seeing her shine, thinking her plumpness was a sign of vitality, her words full of wisdom, wanting nothing more than to follow her. Professor Reed was back in an examination hall, solving one impossible problem after another. Adam Wright was a fresh college graduate, standing before the Capitol building, gazing at the flag waving in the wind. Backstage, Alex stood, his hands clenched and unclenched, his eyes moist. This was Leo's triumph. This was his miracle. Richard Vance watched the incandescent boy on stage, then looked at his wife and daughter, both completely mesmerized. For the first time all night, he raised his own arm, waving the glowing stick in his hand. It didn't feel so silly after all. He was a boy again, too, driving a truck down a winding mountain road in a torrential downpour, his hands sweating, his leg trembling, knowing he couldn't stop, couldn't brake, that the only way out was forward to tear through the darkness into the daylight, onto the open road. A beautiful song makes you feel. The massive arena fell into a reverent silence, the voice not just entering their ears, but blowing past all their defenses straight into their hearts. It was a warmth, a dizziness, a feeling of being moved beyond words. This was why people still paid so much money, traveled so far, to see live music. The shared resonance, the collective emotion, it was something no recording could ever replicate. Leo sang, sweat beading on his forehead, his back soaked beneath the elaborate costume. He was singing for thousands, and they were all with him, their lights a waving constellation. He felt like a lark, soaring through the clouds. I wasn't born stubborn, he thought. I drifted for a long time. But then one day, I started waking up early. I started running. I went against the wind, struggled, and now, maybe I'm a fierce young son. It turns out I could. The big screen cut to a shot of the audience, and he saw her, Stella, smiling at him. In that moment, he felt a surge of real courage. If, one day, she told him she was leaving, going to some far-off school, he wouldn't be consumed by fear and insecurity. He was stronger now. Resistance only makes me stronger, shatter the walls. Every single footstep on the road, so I'll never feel the fear, just the warm moon watching from my window, a dream that's finally clear. On the stage where I belong, fearless and reborn. The song ended. Stella and Jordan rushed the stage with flowers. He hugged Jordan, then swept Stella up into his arms, spinning her in a circle as the stadium erupted in a deafening roar of applause. Jordan laughed. If he weren't a bit overweight, he would have demanded a celebratory spin, too. In a small town, far away, Sarah Riley and her friends were huddled around a phone, watching the live stream. They listened, captivated, as her brother's friend shone on stage. That's us, she thought. We are all fierce, young sons. She just got her mock exam results back. First in the county, second in the entire city. On stage, Leo took the microphone, his hand still trembling slightly, his breath catching in his chest. Thank you, he said. I'm Leo Foster. May we all be fierce young sons, and may we always charge forward. The entire stadium rose to its feet. The end. September 22nd, 2025. Today, all endeavors are favored.